Nilachala Nivashaya Nityaya Paramatmane Balabhadra Subhadrabhyam Jagannathaya Te Namaha. Nilachala the blue mountain. Nivashaya, who resides. Nityaya, unto the one who is eternal. Paramatmane, unto him who is the super soul. Balabhadra, Shri Balaram. Subhadrabhyam, along with Subhadra Devi. Jagannathaya, unto Lord Jagannath. Te, unto Namaha, my respectful obeisances. So I offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Jagannath along with Baladev and Subhadra, who reside, who are the eternal absolute truth and the super soul of the living entities, and who reside in the Nilachal mountain. So is the meaning clear to everyone? So this is the pranam mantra to Lord Jagannath. Today is Jagannath's Shnan Jatra, the bathing ceremony. Lord Jagannath is Krishna himself. So along with Baladev and Subhadra, the obeisances and respects are offered. And his identity has been further declared here, that one who resides in Nilachal. Nilachal is the blue mountain, Jagannath Puri. Actually it's a mountain. Nil means blue, Achal means mountain. So Nilachal means the blue mountain. It is also known as, that place is also known as Shankha Kshetra. Actually there is a huge conch shell. The mountain actually is a conch shell, Shankha. So the Shankha is raised back, so that is the mountain, and Lord Jagannath is situated there. The conch, the land of the conch. In Satyuga, that place used to be a mountain. But then the sand has covered the mountain. So nowadays we don't see the mountain, but the temple of the Lord Jagannath is there on top of that mountain. So Nilachala Nivashaya. Where does Lord Jagannath reside? He resides in Jagannath Puri or Nilachal or Niladri. These are the different names of that place. Nilachal, Niladri, Puri. Puri means the abode of the Lord. Shankha Kshetra. And who is Lord Jagannath? Lord Jagannath is the Nityaya. He is eternal. In the material nature, everything is temporary. But Lord Jagannath is not of this material nature. He is the supreme spiritual personality. So, he is Nitya Nityanam. He is not only Nitya, but he is the Nitya of all the Nityas. Jai Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan Lalita Vishakha Devi ki Jai. Jai Shri Shri Krishna Balaram Sandipani Muni ki Jai. Jai Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki Jai. So here he has been described as Nityaya. He is eternal. His form is eternal. And he is also Paramatmani. He is the super soul of every living entity. Param Atma, the super soul, the supreme soul. Super soul, Paramatmani. And he is residing there in Nilachal along with his brother Balabhadra and Subhadra. And therefore, they have been described as Balabhadra Subhadrabhyam. This is the Ditya Vibhakti. In Sanskrit, the cases are in three forms: singular, dual, and plural. And so this is along with. This along with is the fourth case and dual number, Balabhadra and Subhadra. Balabhadra Subhadrabhyam. If it was Bahubachan or many, then it would have been Subhadra, but the Bhi, Subhadrabhi, Subhadrabhyam, Subhadrabhi. Balabhadra, along with Balabhadra and Subhadra. Balabhadra, Subhadrabhyam, Jagannathaya te namaha. I offer my obeisances unto Lord Jagannath. So Jagannath is Krishna. Who is the Jagannath again? The meaning of the word is Jagat Nath. Jagat means the world, the entire material nature. Jagat, and there are two types of Jagats. One is Chit Jagat and Jara Jagat. Spiritual nature and material nature. So he is the Nath. Nath means the Lord. So who is the Lord of the universe? Who is the Lord of the entire? When you say Jagat, it also implies both material and spiritual nature. So who is the Lord of the both material nature and spiritual nature? Who? Krishna. Therefore Jagannath is Krishna. So, Jayo Jayo Jagannatha Shochira Nandan Tribhuvana Karejar Charana Bandhan. Who is Jagannath? Jagannath is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, Shachinandan is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, Jaya Jaya Jagannatha Shachiranandan. So, this Jagannath and Shachinandan Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are the same personality. Only difference is Nilachale Shankho Chakra Gada Padma Dharo Nodiya Nagore Dando Kamandalu Karo. In Nilachal, he holds Shankha and Chakra, Gada and Padma. Conch shell, disc, mess and lotus. Shankha, Chakra, Gada, Padma. These are, he is holding those four articles in his four hands in Nilachal. And Nodiya Nagare in Navadip in the city of Navadvip, Nadia Nagare, Dando Kamandolu Karu. He is holding Danda, Sannas Danda and Kamandolu or water pot. Nadia Nagare, Dando Kamandolu Karu. So, and he is Krishna himself. So, whoever is Jagannath, he is same Krishna. Then the same Krishna is again Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Lord manifests himself in his different pastimes. So what is Jagannath's pastimes? Jagannath's appearance has been very elaborately described in Skanda Puran. Skanda Puran is one of the 18 Puranas. So Skanda Puran, in Skanda Puran, the description of Jagannath's appearance has been given that long time ago in Satyuga there was a king called Indradumna. Now, interesting thing to note here also, Indradumna was the king of Avanti. Now, where is Avanti? What is Avanti? Avanti is Ujjain. So, he was the king. Indradumna actually was the king of this place. So, you can see that Jagannath also has a very close relationship with Ujjain. Avanti. So King Indradumna wanted to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He was a great devotee of the Lord. So he wanted to see the Lord. But that was Satyuga. So in Satyuga, how could one see the Lord? In Satyuga, the only way to see the Lord was through meditation. The process of achieving spiritual perfection in Satyuga is dhyan. Kriteja dhyate Vishnu. Krita means Satyuga, dhyate Vishnu. Meditating upon Vishnu, one could see the Lord in the heart. But he was a king and he had other responsibilities, so he could not meditate, but he wanted to see the Lord. His desire became so intense that he started to neglect his royal responsibilities. The ministers and other royal associates of the king became very concerned. So the king, one day when the king was in the court and he was expressing his desire to his courtesans, that how he wanted to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he lost all his interest for the kingdom, maintaining his kingdom. And so when the king was expressing his intense desire to see the Lord, then one pilgrim, Brahman, wandering Brahmana who goes from place to place of pilgrimage. So he just appeared in the court and told him, "My Lord, O dear king, if you want to see the Lord, then you can go to Niladri mountain, Nilachal mountain. And there the Lord is present as Nila Madhav. Madhav, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his Neela, bluish form. So the king naturally became very eager, but when he asked who actually said it, and he wanted to get more information, then he found that the Brahman is not there. The Brahman disappeared. So the king then asked everyone, where is this Niladri mountain? Where can I find? And no one knew where the Niladri mountain was, where Jagannatha was. So then the king said, okay, all the Brahmanas, please go and find out where is this Niladri mountain where Nilamadha, the Lord, is there as Nilamadha. So different Brahmanas were sent out in search of Nilamadha, and they traveled for a long time and then came back. All of them came back except Vidyapati, the chief priest. So, and everyone came back with the disappointing news that they couldn't find Niladri mountain or Nilamadha. The interesting thing to note that in Satyuga the Lord was not present in his deity form. There was only one deity of the Lord, that is Nilamadha. The deity of the Lord actually became manifest in Dwapar Yuga. In Satyuga the Lord did not manifest through deity. In Satyuga the Lord used to appear to his devotee in the heart. And through meditation, when a devotee used to achieve perfection, he could see the Lord in the heart, face to face. In Treta Yuga also there was no deity of the Lord. The Lord used to appear after the performance of sacrifice. When the sacrifice was perfectly executed, then the Lord would appear from the sacrificial fire. So this is how in Satyuga and Treta Yuga the devotees could see the Lord. In Satyuga through meditation, in Treta Yuga through perfect performance of sacrifice. It's only in Dwapar Yuga the Lord's deity became manifest. And in Kali Yuga, the Lord has manifested in the form of the holy name. These are the 4 different ways the Lord manifests himself. So at that time in Satyuga, the deity, there was only one deity, the deity of Nilamadha, when no one knew where the deity was. So all the Brahmanas looked around everywhere but couldn't find him. And they came back. The only person who did not come back was Vidyapati. Vidyapati, traveling for a long time, he came upon a village. But that village was the village of the Shavaras. Shavaras are the untouchables. In the Vedic culture, in the Vedic society, the civilized society was structured through Varnashram. Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. So these 4 classes were civilized. And those who are below the Shudras, or those who are not included in Varnashram, they were known as Antajas or outcasts. What is the difference between the Varnashramis and Antajas. The Varnashramis, all these four classes, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra, they all used to lead their life with Krishna in the center. That is the consideration of civilization. Those who accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead and render service unto Him, directly or indirectly, they are the Varnashramis. But those who do not, those who don't serve the Lord, they are the outcasts, Antajas. So Shavaras were Antajas, and Vidyapati was a Brahman. So Vidyapati, in normal condition, Vidyapati would not have anything to do with a Shavara. But he became so tired while traveling that when he came to that village, he just approached the first house that he could see, and that house was the house of the leader of the Shavaras, the king of the Shavaras. His name was Vishavashu. But he was not home at that time. But his young daughter, Lalita, was there. So when he approached the house completely tired and exhausted, thirsty and hungry, Lalita invited him to the house and treated him very nicely. Gave water to drink and food to eat. And Vidyapati, and this is also another consideration of Lord Jagannath, we will see gradually that Lord Jagannath is accepting devotional service beyond the rules and regulations of the scriptures, which is known as Vaidhi Bhakti. There are two types of devotional service, Vaidhi Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti. Vaidhi Bhakti demands following the rules and regulations inscribed in the scriptures. Rules and regulations of the scriptures. But Raganuga Bhakti is a devotion of love. So, normally a Brahmana, according to Vaidhi Bhakti, will not accept anything from an Antaja, outcast. But you can see when you are hungry and dying of hunger and thirst, then all those rules and regulations become secondary. So Vidyapati, very high-class Brahmana, he approached the house of a Shavara and he accepted their treatment. So when the king of the Shavaras, Vishavashu, king means he was not obviously living in a palace. His king means a leader, the tribal leader. So they were the tribes and he was the leader of the tribes. So he was actually a hunter. Shavaras, generally, their occupation is hunting. So when he heard, when he came home and found that a Brahmana was staying in his house, he became very, very excited. A Brahmana came to my house and accepted my hospitality. So, and he requested Vidyapati to stay on. He could see that he was very exhausted, so he said, "Why don't you stay for some time?" And Vidyapati also thought that, well, he was tired and exhausted after such a long travel. So he decided to stay there for a while. And Vishavashu became so fond of Vidyapati that he wished that if this nice boy would become my son-in-law, it would be so nice. So he proposed that Vidyapati marry his daughter, and Vidyapati accepted. And then he was staying there. Then he noticed one strange incident. He noticed that every day, every night, Vishavashu goes out and comes back in the morning. And when he came back in the morning, he used to have a beautiful fragrance coming from his body. So he asked Lalita, "Where does your father go at night?" Jai Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki Jai. Jai Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan Lalita Vishaka Devi ki Jai. Jai Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki. So Lalita then told him that actually her father goes to worship Nilamadhav every night. So Vidyapati became very excited because he was searching for Nilamadhav, and this was Krishna's divine arrangement that Krishna actually brought him there to reveal where Nilamadhav was. So he asked, "Oh, Nilamadhav, so will you please tell your father to show me where the deity of the Lord is?" So Lalita said, "Look, my father is very secretive about this. He didn't even take me to see Nilamadhav. He told me that he goes to worship Nilamadhav, but he never tells anyone. The only person who knows about Nilamadhav is me, no one else. And he is so protective also because those days a non-Brahmana could not worship the deity or have anything to do with worshipping the Lord. So much so that one could not even, a non-Brahmana couldn't even touch the Vedas. What to speak of read the Vedas. Of course, we have to understand that this consideration of a Brahmana and a non-Brahmana is according to qualification, not only by birth. But generally, those days the society was so pure that generally in the family of a Brahmana, a Brahminical soul would take birth. In the family of a Kshatriya, a Kshatriya-like personality would take birth. According to their qualities, they would take birth in different varnas, different families. So, in the age of Kali, it has become all mixed up, which is known as Varna Shankara, a mixing up of Varnas. Therefore, we find in the Kali Yuga, actually what happened in Kali Yuga is that everybody became a Sudra. Ashuddha Sudra Kalpahi Brahmana Kali Sambhava. In the age of Kali, even the Brahmanas will become as contaminated or impure as the Shudras. Ashuddha. Ashuddha means impure. Shudra Kalpahi, like a Shudra. Brahmana Kali Sambhava. In the age of Kali, the Brahmanas will become as impure as the Sudras. Therefore, by birth in the age of Kali, there is no possibility of determining the Varna of an individual. Therefore, Prabhupada said that he is making Brahmanas all over the world. They may not be born in a Brahminical family, but by qualification they are becoming Brahmanas. That's what Srila Prabhupada is doing through ISKCON. Prabhupada is creating the Brahmanas. Not only Brahmanas, even beyond Brahmanas are the Vaishnavas. So Prabhupada is creating the Vaishnavas all over the world. And how Prabhupada is doing that? Brahma janati iti Brahmana. What's the qualification of a Brahmana? He knows the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Brahmanical order also has 4 stages. Dvija, Vipra, 3 actually. Dvija and Vipra and Brahmana. Janmana jayate Shudra. By birth, everyone is a Shudra. Even the son of a Brahmana is like a Shudra. Meaning he is in ignorance. By birth, everyone is a Shudra. But Sangaskwara bhavati dvija. By the process of purification, one becomes a dvija, twice born. The first birth is the birth through the parents, and the second birth is the spiritual birth through the spiritual master and the Vedas. Veda is in the second birth. The Vedas are the mother and spiritual master is the father. So it is through initiation one gets his second birth. So through the initiation one becomes a dvija, twice born. Then Veda Pathat Bhaved Vipra. When he studies the Vedas under the direction of a spiritual master, then he becomes a Vipra. And Brahma Janati iti Brahmana. And when one realizes the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Parabrahma, then he becomes a Brahmana. So here we can see that the Brahmana is a matter of qualification, not by birth alone. Anyway, so in those days, non-Brahmanas could not worship the deities or perform any kind of Vedic activity, which was exclusively reserved from the Brahminical people. So Vishwavashu was worshipping the Lord, so he was worried that if anybody found out, then he would be in difficulty, he would be in trouble. So when Lalita approached him and said, please take your son-in-law to see Nilamadhav, Vishwavashu became very upset. He said, why did you tell him? She said, look, he is my husband. Between me and him there is no secret. So whatever I know, I can't keep it hidden from him. So, and she requested, please take him, after all he is your son-in-law. So take him for the darshan of Nilamadhav. So Vishwavashu agreed on one condition, that he'll have to go blindfold. He'll have to go there blindfold, so that he was afraid that if he finds out where Nilamadhav is, then probably he will steal Nilamadhav away from him. He was so attached to the Lord. So when Lalita told Vidyapati, Vidyapati agreed. So okay, I'll go blindfold. And after all, I'll get to see Nilamadhav. And before leaving, Vidyapati said, can you give me some mustard seed, Lalita? And Lalita said, why do you need mustard seed? He said, well, I'll need it for worshipping. So he tied some mustard seed at the end of his cloth and he was walking blindfold towards Nilamadhav's abode in Niladri mountain. And while he was going, he started to drop those mustard seeds. So he had the darshan. When he was brought to Nilamadhav, Vishavashu opened his eyes and Vidyapati saw Nilamadhav, beautiful form of the Lord, the Satchidananda Vigraha of Krishna. And Vishavashu said, okay, you wait here, I will go and I'll collect some fruits and flowers for worship. So while Vidyapati was sitting there, drinking the beauty of Lord Nilamadhav through his eyes, he also witnessed a very wonderful sight. He saw that there was a pond, and on the bank of the pond there was a tree, and a crow was sitting on the tree, and all of a sudden the crow died and he fell in the water of the pond. And as soon as his body touched the water of that pond, this crow developed his four-armed spiritual form and went back to Vaikuntha. So he could see the potency of this place, or potency, spiritual power of this pond. That just by dying in contact with that pond, one can achieve spiritual perfection, go back to Vaikuntha. So Vidyapati thought, let me give up my body in this pond. Then I'll also develop my Vaikuntha form and go back to the spiritual sky. But when Vidyapati, thinking that way, was about to plunge himself into that pond in order to give up his body, he heard a voice saying, Vidyapati, this is not the time for you to go back to Godhead. You have many, many things to do. Your friend, your king, Indradumna, is waiting for you to go back with the news of Nilamadhav. And so please go back and report to him that you found Nilamadhav. So then Vidyapati refrained from his act of committing suicide in the pond. And then when Vishavashu came back, Vishavashu was massaging the feet of Nilamadhav. He is an ordinary Shavara. He didn't know how to worship the Lord. His worship was just out of his love for the Lord. He used to worship him only with his love. So, when he was massaging his feet, then the Lord spoke up. All of a sudden, Vishavashu heard a voice saying, Vishavashu, I have received your worship for a long, long time. Now, the time has come that for me to accept the worship of the king, King Indradumna. So now I will go to King Indradumna to take his worship, to receive his worship. So Vishavashu became very upset when he heard that. He thought that this Vidyapati must have spoken to Jagannatha and convinced him to leave and go to Avanti to accept the worship of the king. So he just got hold of him and said that you are stealing my Nilamadha from me. It's because of you that he has decided now to stop taking my worship and accept the worship of the king. I will kill you. I'll not let him go. I'll not let you take him away from me. Saying that, he got hold of Vidyapati, tied him up on a tree and said, okay, I won't kill you, but you will die. In the forest, some wild animals will come and eat you. Why should I kill you? Rather, let the animals do the job. Wild animals do the job. And even if the wild animals do not come and eat you, you will die of starvation. So he just tied him up in a tree and he went back. When he returned home, Lalita saw that Vidyapati didn't come back, so she asked what happened to him. And Vishavashu, in a very angry way, told her what actually happened. He said that I will never let this person take Nilamadha away from me. So I left him in the forest, tied him up in a tree. So then Lalita ran into the forest and finally she found Vidyapati tied up to a tree. And so she let him go, released his bond and let him go. And Vidyapati assured that he would come back and take her. So Vidyapati went back to the king and reported to him that he found Nilamadha. King Indradunu became very excited. He said, immediately he arranged to go. So eager he was to see the Lord. And when they returned, Vidyapati didn't know where Lord was exactly. But you remember, he was dropping the mustard seeds. So by the time the mustard seeds became plants, they grew into plants. And following those mustard plants, Vidyapati led the king to the place where Nilamadha was. But when they arrived there, they found that Nilamadha is not there. He is gone. So king thought, the Shavara must have hidden Nilamadha somewhere. So he caught them. He asked the king Vishavashu, where was Nilamadha? But he wouldn't answer. So king then searched the whole village, could not find him. King tortured Vishavashu, but still Vishavashu wouldn't say anything. So finally the king sieged the village and cut the supply. This is how he wanted to torture them, to find out where they have kept Nilamadha hidden. Then one night, the king had a dream. The Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, why are you unnecessarily torturing these Savaras? It is I who have disappeared myself. It is not that they have kept me hidden somewhere. It's I who disappeared. Now I have come in the form of a transcendental log. You go to the ocean and you'll find me. And from that log you can carve my deity. And that deity will be non-different than me, non-different from me. The king immediately jumped out of his bed and rushed to the ocean. And he found that there was a log. And he tried to pull the log out of the water, but he could not. The log was too heavy for him to pull out. Then the king got his soldiers to pull the log. They also couldn't pull the log out. Then he got his horses and elephant, this whole army, along with the horses and elephant, tried to pull the log out of the water. Still they also could not. So when the king became completely disappointed in this way, then he had another dream. And in that dream, he heard the Lord telling him that if Vidyapati and Vishavashu hold the ends of the log, then they'll be able to pull the log out of the water. So the king immediately got Vishavashu and Vidyapati, and to his utter amazement, he found that they just very easily lifted the log out of the water. Then the log was brought in and kept in a chamber, and now the king wanted to get the best of the carvers to carve the deity of the Lord. But when these carvers came and they tried to carve the deity out of the Lord, as soon as they touched their chisel and hammer as soon as they tried to carve the log, immediately as soon as they touched the log, his chisels and hammers broke. And that happened with every single craftsman. They couldn't even make a scratch on that log. So again the king was disappointed. Then one day a very old man came, and he introduced himself as Ananta Maharana. And he said that I am a carver and I'll carve this log. Carve the deity out of this log. The king said, look, so many very, very skilled and powerful artisans could not carve the deity. They couldn't even touch the log. You are an old man, how do you dare to do that? He said, no, don't worry, I will do it. After all, what's your loss? No one succeeded. So give me a chance. If I succeed, well and good. If I don't, then what's your loss? But I have one condition, that as long as I am carving, no one should interrupt me. I will work behind a closed door in this room, and as long as I am working, until the deities are, until my work is complete, no one should enter into that room. If anyone enters, then I'll immediately leave. So the king agreed, and then he heard that the work was going on. He could hear from outside, he could hear the carving, the sound of carving. But then, all of a sudden, one day, the sound stopped. The king was eagerly waiting when the work will be completed and he would see the deity of the Lord. So when it stopped, he became very, very anxious. Naturally, he had many anxieties. He saw this person, Ananta Maharana, was a very old man, and he probably thought that whether he had a heart attack or something, he became sick, or his ultimate anxiety was, why did the work stop? So in his acute anxiety, the king just opened the door and walked into that room. And he found that that carver was not there. Ananta Maharana was not there. And there are 3 incomplete deities. The king became so heartbroken, and he felt that he broke his promise, and because of breaking that promise, the Lord did not manifest himself. So the king decided to give up his body. So he sat on pryopobation. He just sat down without taking any food or water in order to give up his body. So 1 day, 2 days, 3 days went by. On the 3rd day, the king, when he dozed off, he had a dream. And in that dream, the Lord was telling him, look, Indradumna, don't think that this form is incomplete. This is my form. This is my transcendental Satchidananda Vigraha. So you get these 3 deities painted and start to worship them. Start to worship me. So he assured that, look, in this form I am present in the spiritual sky. So this is how King Indradumna started the worship of Lord Jagannath, Baladev and Subhadra. Apparently it appears that these forms are incomplete. Like the carving was half done. Right? When a carver starts to carve, like they gradually bring out the form. So the total form did not come out. It was apparently an incomplete form. But the Lord told Indradumna that I am present in this form. This form is my eternal form also, and in this form I am also present in the spiritual sky. So where is that? So this aspect Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur elaborated. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur explained, he must have got it from some scriptures, that one day the queens of Dwarka approached Mother Rohini that, please tell us about Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes. We see that Krishna is not really present here. Krishna's heart is somewhere else. His mind is somewhere else. So please tell us what is there in Vrindavan that makes Krishna so absent-minded all the time, as if his heart is in Vrindavan. So the queen, then Mother Rohini, who actually had been there in Vrindavan during Krishna and Balaram's pastimes there, assured them that one day she will tell them. When Krishna and Balaram would not be around, then she will tell them. Because she didn't want to tell these pastimes of Krishna and Balaram in Vrindavan, because she knew how heartbroken Krishna will become to hear about his activities and his associates of Vrindavan. So they were waiting, and one day when Krishna and Balaram went somewhere, then the queens approached, 16,000 queens approached Mother Rohini and said, today Krishna and Balaram are not here, so you please tell us about Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes. So they all assembled in one room. Must have been a big room to accommodate 16,000 queens. And Rohini started to tell them about Krishna Balaram's Vrindavan pastimes. And Subhadra was kept at the door, just in case anyone came, she should not allow anyone to come in. Or if anyone is around, then she should tell them, because Rohini Mata did not want anyone and everyone to hear about Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes. So Subhadra was at the gate, at the door of that hall, and Rohini was telling the story of Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes. And at that time, Krishna and Balaram just appeared there. And hearing Krishna Balaram's Vrindavan pastimes, Rohini became so emotional that she couldn't speak. She couldn't warn them that Krishna and Balaram were there. All she could do is she could just stretch her arms and stop Krishna and Balaram from entering into the hall. And Krishna and Balaram, standing there, was hearing Rohini's descriptions of their Vrindavan pastimes, of their associates, and how much they love him. And so while listening to that, Krishna assumed a very unique form. And that form is the form of Lord Jagannatha. And Balaram also assumed the same emotion, and as a result of that, he also assumed a similar form. And Subhadra also, being induced by their emotion, she also assumed the same form. And she started to feel so guilty that she stopped Krishna and Balaram. That she stretched her arms to prevent them from coming. And she felt so guilty that her arms were withdrawn. That's why Subhadra, you'd see, doesn't have the arm. So this is how it has been described, that how Jagannath appeared and how Jagannath's form is an eternal form in the spiritual sky. In Dwarka, Krishna, Balaram and Subhadra are present in this form when they feel that intense separation from Vrindavan. And Chaitanya Charitamrita also has elaborately explained the same episode of Lord Jagannath's appearance in an even more detail. And that description is that Krishna and Balaram went to Kurukshetra on the occasion of solar eclipse to take bath there in Shamanta Panchak. And the solar eclipse was over, everyone was arranging to leave. So at that time, the residents of Vrindavan also came to take bath in Shamanta Panchak on the occasion of the solar eclipse. When they were about to leave after the Ratha Jatra, after the solar eclipse, when they were preparing to leave, they just heard that Krishna and Balaram also was there. So as soon as they heard that Krishna and Balaram were there, they just ran to meet him. At that time, Krishna and Balaram were already on their chariot preparing to leave. So at that time Srimati Radharani just came there and she saw Krishna and she felt that this is not the Krishna that I knew. My Krishna is a cowherd boy. This is a prince. My Krishna wears peacock feather on his head. And this person is wearing a crown. My Krishna has a flower garland on his neck. And this person is wearing the armor and jewels and jewel necklaces, and my Krishna carries a flute, and this personality is carrying bows and arrows and sword, and my Krishna is in Vrindavan on the bank of the river. He plays his flute, and this place is so full of all these horses and chariots and soldiers and noblemen, royal personnel, and there is so much noise and so much clamor. So Radharani was completely disappointed seeing Krishna. So the residents of Vrindavan, understanding the heart of Srimati Radharani, they decided to kidnap Krishna and take him to Vrindavan. So Krishna was already on his chariot. The horses were already harnessed to draw the chariot. So these residents, what they did, the gopis and the residents of Vrindavan, they just got hold of the chariot along with the horses and started to pull the chariot towards Vrindavan. So that is the Jagannath's Rath Yatra festival. And at that time Krishna, seeing the residents of Vrindavan, felt such an intense feeling of separation and an yearning to be with them that his hands stretched out to embrace them. And his face lit up with a beautiful smile. His eyes bloomed like two lotuses to drink the nectarian beauty of the gopis of Vrindavan. So in this way, Krishna assumed this wonderful form as Lord Jagannath. So this is the form where Krishna of Dwarka is yearning to go to Vrindavan. Krishna is hankering to go to Vrindavan. Krishna is yearning to be with his devotees of Vrindavan. So when Krishna, the king of Dwarka, the prince of Dwarka, wants to go to Vrindavan and associate with his devotees of Vrindavan, that is Lord Jagannath. Jai Jagannath, Jai Baladev, Jai Subhadra, Gaur Premanande. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunnavadi Paschata